Nuclear power is still a major source of energy inside the United States, and it's not a secret out there that the United States does not mine most of its uranium for those power plants. There's a lot of other uses that the United States uses uranium for, and let's just say we have a serious problem here because Russia is threatening to cut off its supply of uranium to the United States. It's going to be a big blow. It's not going to be quite as big of a blow as if we suddenly have all exports of gasoline and diesel imported into the United States cut off, but uranium is mission critical for a lot of different things, from medical to military as well as to energy production. And the United States does not have a strategic reserve of uranium. It does not have a lot of uranium sitting around. It is importing uranium kind of almost just in time. We're going to talk about the impact of a Russian ban on exporting uranium to the United States. We're going to talk about some of the surprising things that people aren't talking about with that as well, that there are other allied countries with Russia that are probably going to follow in lockstep, and this could be a serious blow to the United States. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we talk about things on this channel that maybe don't get to the top of the news cycle for the world because, you know, this celebrity said this to that celebrity and all that kind of stuff like that, all that garbage. All the he said, she said kind of stuff that happens in politics. It tends to gobble up so much space on the news fronts. But some of these stories just get swept under the rug, like the fact that the United States Congress is trying to put an embargo starting in 2028 on uranium imports from Russia. And you know what? Russia has turned around and they've said, well, if you want to ban it in 2028, how about we ban it right now? And the United States is like, no, don't do that. Right now, a little over 12% of the production or the usage of uranium inside the United States comes from Russia. Now, that may not sound too bad, but here's the other thing, is that an additional 25% of U.S. consumption of uranium actually comes from Kazakhstan. Now, for those of you who don't want to pull out a map and look at it too closely and don't really care about what's going on in the Kazakh steppes, let's just say that a lot of times when people talk about Russia, they forget about Central Asia. And that's kind of important because most of the countries in Central Asia are basically in lockstep when it comes to what Russia's foreign policy is. So when we have this invasion of Eastern Europe that we're not supposed to talk about, a lot of the troops that are being used are actually Tajik troops from Tajikistan. Russia's largest foreign military base is actually based in Tajikistan, and it's basically a recruitment center where Tajikistan is kept intentionally poor, and then Russia basically brings in many recruits who just want a better life, and they sign up to serve in the Russian military with the promise of getting Russian citizenship. And that's a big deal in Tajikistan. And so that's why we have whole divisions in the Russian military that are Tajiks. They're not Russian. They can speak Russian, but they're Tajiks. And when we look at other countries inside the old Soviet Union, the Central Asian states, Kazakhstan is very much right in line with what Russia has to do, and a lot of uranium in the world is mined in Kazakhstan. And so if you combine Russia with Kazakhstan, 37% of the uranium used in the United States comes from those two countries. Are you worried yet? And when we start talking about power companies, because this was actually sent out as an alert warning to the Russian uranium mining company, actually sent out alerts to many of the U.S. power companies and told them, hey, we may not be allowed to export uranium to you, and this could happen really suddenly. Now, we import some of our uranium from Canada, but we import 37% of the uranium used in the United States. And you say, well, Steve, what's the big deal about that? Okay, so our nuclear power plants are going to have trouble. We're going to have to source it from somewhere else or something like that. We use a lot of uranium in the U.S. military. We can get our U.S. Abrams tanks out, right? And those are armored with uranium. So we use it for armor plating. All of the shells that we load into those tank guns, those are depleted uranium armor piercing tips. So the sabot round inside there is basically a dart that's made out of depleted uranium. So we take the uranium into the United States, we sort it, and we get the fissionable portion of the uranium, and we use that in our power plants and make nuclear weapons and all that kind of stuff like that. I'm oversimplifying. For those of you who want to get down in the comments and start critiquing me, we don't use uranium in nuclear weapons. Well, where do you think we get the plutonium from, friends? It doesn't just magically rain out of the air. We use uranium and we make plutonium. Anyway, so the depleted uranium rounds that we use in our tanks, that's uranium. Armor plating, uranium. We use it for medical. We use it for chemical reactions and stuff like that too. There are a number of processes that use radiation from uranium for irradiating stuff and all that kind of stuff. We use uranium for quite a bit of stuff. But the big thing we use it for, of course, is power generation. Now, we use approximately 17,500 metric tons of uranium per year. And we're looking at over a third of that being wiped out all in one fell swoop. And in addition to that, we're talking about the fact that that power plants and inside the United States, we don't have stockpiles of uranium. So that would go out pretty fast. Would we have enough to continue operating our power plants? If not, we're going to see a dramatic drop-off of electrical power. And that is concerning. So, while we are highly dependent upon the Middle East for oil still, even though we export more energy than what we import, we are highly dependent upon Middle Eastern oil imports in order to run our refineries here in the United States. So we export a lot of our raw oil and we import a lot of raw oil because our refineries can't really process the kinds of oil that we're having coming out of our out of the ground here in the United States. Now I know once again that's a gross oversimplification. We can mix the oil into, but we still have to import a lot of Arabian oil in order to make our refineries work at the way that they're built. And so practically a lot of tankers come from the Middle East, bring oil over from the Middle East for us to operate our refineries. And so if we don't have that, our refineries won't operate. And if our refineries won't operate, then we don't have diesel, jet fuel, and gasoline here in the United States. Gross oversimplification, but that's the nuts and bolts of it. Is that it doesn't matter if we just keep pumping oil out of the ground. If we can't run the refineries, we run out of diesel, gas, and we already have very little diesel reserves, and our gasoline reserves keep shrinking every single month. And that's a simple fact out there too. Our diesel reserves and our gasoline reserves continue to trend downward. Now, I think there's a few months where it kind of pops back up a little bit, but generally speaking, we have less diesel and gasoline reserves today than we did last year. And it's trending downward because we're producing less diesel and gasoline than what we're consuming here in the United States. And that is causing a lot of problems. We have an energy crisis here in the United States. And just like so many other things, we're just sweeping it under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about it. And yet we have Congress out there like saying stupid stuff about, oh, well, we need to go all green energy. And also, at the same time, let's ban the import of uranium, which we desperately need to bridge the gap. It's absolutely crazy. It's as crazy as the people in California and the Pacific Northwest trying to tear down dams, hydroelectric dams. Hydroelectric energy is the cheapest energy in the world. It's the cheapest, absolute cheapest generation. it's net zero carbon, whatever, and yet they still want to tear down these dams. It's not about saving the planet, friends. It's about making people feel good about stuff and giving them a purpose so they can rail against infrastructure and everything like that. I mean, they want to cover up thousands and thousands of acres of desert, which is going to seriously impact wildlife out there in the desert. But they'll do that in order to tear down dams that are, impacting fish. You can't win with these people. You can't win with them. Because sooner or later, they're going to be like all concerned about the desert wildlife. And then they're going to want to tear down all those solar farms that they build out in the desert. And they're just going to tell you, you just need to deal with not having electricity. You just need to use your fair share of electricity. This is all going somewhere, and it's about putting us all back in caves, walking around with clubs, and acting like cavemen again. That's where they want us to go. They want us to be like the Native American tribes here in the United States who are running around in the woods, murdering each other with rocks and sticks before the Europeans came. That's where they want to take us back to. And they have this idealized version of what that looked like, but the fact that slavery was here in the United States before the white people came is something that nobody wants to talk about. That violence and warfare was very big and very extreme. Cannibalism was here in the United States and in North America before the white people came. They weren't all, singing songs with Bambi and dancing through the forest. Uranium and nuclear power is the future. Hydroelectric power is awesome, but there's only so many places you can stick a hydroelectric dam. Having nuclear power plants is what China is doing. They're building nuclear power plants like it's going out of style. And we already know out there that there is not enough uranium mining to go around for the world. And Russia is perfectly happy kneecapping the United States by getting Kazakhstan and getting their entire production of uranium to go straight to China, which China wants to lock in, and the United States power plants would just go dark. That would just tickle them to death. And that's where we're going. That's where we're headed. So friends, we are headed for some dark winters, some cold winters without power. And if you're not taking steps to get more energy independent, whether that's getting a wood fireplace, whether that's getting stocked up on wood, whether it's getting alternative forms of heat that you can heat your home with. If you're not taking those steps, I mean, are you seeing what's coming? Are you seeing what's coming? Getting stocked up on food is important. Getting stocked up on fuel and making sure that you can heat your home, these are important things. Now, if you're down in Florida, or if you're down in Texas or whatever like that, there isn't all that much heating that you got to do. I mean, there's heating that you want to do, but there's not heating that you have to do, okay? You can survive a lot of stuff with just blankets and some other options. But if you're up north, like in Pennsylvania here and other places, you have to heat your home, or else people start getting pneumonia and, serious health problems. You have to heat your homes up in the north. So if you're not taking steps like that, I don't know what to tell you. What you got to do is you got to be getting ready for what's coming, because if you're not, it's going to be a hard row for you to hoe. You know what I'm saying? All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.